And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Schmoes Show. After a week off, we are back. And oh boy, wasn't it a fun week to be alive, ladies and gentlemen? I say that ironically. Don't you dare take those words out of context. Oh my god, how sucky can things get?
Yeah, it has been rough.
Rough is a phrase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is an understatement.
I don't know what the fuck is going on here anymore. uh,
Reading more and more about the
yeah, go on.
representatives the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Um, it's one of the few ones of these events where we're like a full week out now, and there's still more information that's coming forward that makes it even worse. Almost daily, we're finding out new things that either happened beforehand or while it was going on that show how inept our systems are.
You see, at the beginning of the show, well, when he first came onto Discord, ladies and gentlemen, he used a much different phrase to describe it, and I yelled at him for it, and he used the perfect phrase this time because inept is greatly
Yeah.
superior to the first phrase he used.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh, so do we want to go over the details of what exactly happened for those who live under a rock?
Let me see if I can. In a second, I want to see if I can find. Like I mentioned before that I haven't done a ton of fact checking on this just because it's been so infuriating.
Yeah.
But I do want to see if I can find like a timeline of it, something that's more concrete.
I know you can find a timeline of like some of the 911 calls, which, harrowing as they are, I would not like to talk about those.
Yeah, I have personally been very intentionally avoiding um, any sort of the video or audio stuff just because I know how it's not going to make it isn't the kind of thing that I need to hear to understand what happened. We know what happened.
That is like the sad part about this. Like, can I, while you're getting this all set up, can I just do a little like media studies analysis of some of this shit?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. We are addicted to misery porn in the media because there's nothing even remotely uplifting about any of this shit. And granted, we should not need anything uplifting to understand the severity of this, but oh my god, why is it every time we get a new detail about the story, it's about why, oh, it could have been better, but we didn't make it go better. It's like if you had a series of dominoes and you pay them just so much that they have the potential to stop falling once you flick them, but they will just keep falling over and over and over again because, well, that's just what dominoes do. And no domino could stand up to the sheer pressure of the situation properly and do its fucking job. And I think everybody's starting to see the metaphor here that I'm going for. And they just kept falling in line, and just laying there doing absolutely nothing. And we paid those dominoes. Well, I didn't pay any those dominoes because I don't live in the area, but that's beside the fact. The sheer amount of misery to the story is just absolutely sensationalist. And I understand the severity of like how important this story is because it's how terrible it went. But oh my god, is it just misery porn everywhere with this? And I'm so sad. It just makes me very upset. The agenda is set, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna see very clearly. Like after Columbine, this shouldn't have happened again. After Sandy Hook, this shouldn't have happened again. We're at the point now where I am not convinced our systems are capable of the change needed.
I'm convinced our systems do not want the change needed.
Yep.
That's pretty much the better way of putting it. Because, like, systems don't just appear out of nowhere. They're typically put in there because someone likes them being there. And the people who can change the system just frankly don't want it to change because it's a little inconvenient for them, is my understanding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Chiral?
Yep.
Yeah. So where do you want to start, my good sir?
So I want to point out two things here. First, New York Times has a whole article dedicated to just what the timeline of it is,
Mm-hmm.
what happened, literally minute by minute. Um, so props to them for that. I also want to say, for as shitty as the media is as a whole, I could not tell you what this piece of shit's name is, and that is good.
Oh, you mean the
Not
shooter?
knowing it's yes.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it has not been widely publicized anywhere, which is very intentional and is only part of it. The fact that almost all of the coverage of this has been focused on the failures of the police and the first responders to this event. I'm not sure if it's good or not, but keeping attention off of the shooter themselves it makes it less appealing for these to happen. It's not a wonder that these shooters do this, you know. It is to a degree attention seeking.
Yes.
It's people who have felt dejected by society as a whole and are looking for one last thing to cement their name in history, kind of thing, no matter the cost. And one of the major things that I heard about this event was that by all accounts, this seemed to be, uh, by all appearances, like suicide by police sort of thing.
Oh my god.
That the police just never responded in any way to it until it was far too late.
Yeah. Uh so are we just going to get to the big detail about the police and their involvement with this incident?
So, I mean, the only thing that needs to be known is that the gunman was in the building for 78 minutes
Yes.
before he was killed by police. Like, you don't need any more details than that to know that something clearly was done wrong.
Yes.
And it only gets worse from there. One of the more infuriating details that I heard about this is that apparently, this school had officers in the school itself.
Okay.
Like, I don't remember what the actual term for it is, but you know what I mean. They had officers who were stationed in the school for whatever purpose. And they had active shooter drills in that exact building with those exact officers like weeks beforehand.
Oh no.
So this isn't a lack of training, not a lack of funding. It's just our legal systems have been set up in a way to prevent any and all accountability for actions and inactions of our law enforcement for so long that they have been told by the justice system that they don't have to do anything, that they don't have to put themselves at risk, because they don't legally. That's what the courts have decided.
Mm-hmm.
And we get shit like this, where they have 19 cops in the building within 15 minutes, and rather than do something, they let 19 kids die instead.
Yes. Because that's what heroes do, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah. You see, I'm of the opinion that police deserve, like, the job of a police officer is very difficult. And that it's no small feat. So the people who want to become police officers should really aspire to be a lot better than your average Joe. And when I hear stuff like this, not exactly making me feel we have, the right performers in such an important position in our society, and that they might just be there for the whole participation trophy of it.
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah.
The There's a really good analogy that I saw and a completely different thing that we'll talk about later.
Oh, fun.
Because it's atrocious in a whole different way. But it was talking about state legislatures and how they are routinely filled with some of the most inept people you will find to be lawmakers because the jobs pay like shit. You don't get any recognition. Anybody who is qualified to be in that kind of a position is either already further up the chain or is being a lawyer, making a real living somewhere. So it gets funneled down to people who either don't have any need for financial security
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, or people who are fanatical and are willing to take those personal losses at the expense of a shit paying job. And then that trickles up all the way through the ranks as you get these people who are either underqualified or have obvious conflicts of interest in their history, all the way up into the higher portions of our government. It's the same thing with policing.
Yeah.
If you have part of it is to do with how fanatic the U.S. military has become. If anybody who should be a cop, 9 times out of 10 is probably going to be in the military instead.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're told they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. I think we've really set up a lot of bad expectations for children growing up. That's really started to pay out terrible ends on like society when they grow up. And it's like what you said. People who should become cops tend to go to the military because that's where they feel they're serving a higher power. But I mean, I don't know. I'm curious what the military thinks of like modern day policing. And unfortunately, I don't know anybody in the military. I only know Navy people.
Yep.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we got to go become cops, Kyril.
Yeah, I guess.
We can do our own police academy. We'll do it like Schmoes Academy.
I have seriously considered getting into more local politics, but
I mean,
it's a huge time commitment, and I already work a full-time job,
that's the problem with local politics is you got to care a lot, number one, right?
Yeah.
Two, you got to have time. That's why I feel like there's a lot of local governments that have like boards and just like larger groups of people to share the burden.
Yep.
But then you get like a
sure.
too many cooks situation, which I'm sure you have 5 people on a board, perfectly fine. But you can't tell me that one of those 5 people wouldn't be out serving their own interests at points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, it's good in a way, but the problem with government is there's no good way to do government because there's always going to be systems of powers that attract wrong actors.
Yep.
Yeah. And let's face it, a lot of good people don't want to get into politics because, well, let's face it, it's an Ouroboros. It eats itself. I don't know. I thought about local politics, but that would be something that I would approach later in life when I do have more time and I'm not trying to pay off my student loan monsters. Plus, if there's one thing people love voting for, it's a older white guy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Tell me I'm not wrong.
No, it is. That's exactly true.
Yeah, I call it the Papa Smurf effect. What you looking at there, Mr. Chiral?
You know, just thinking about it so much, you know.
Yeah, this show is an existential nightmare sometimes. I liked it better when we were making
You know,
fun of Ken Bone.
just existing sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two things that I do want to talk about
Oh no.
is that one, regarding the treatment of the parents by the police
Mm,
in this situation,
go on.
because let me find the exact minute it happened, because we have this timeline thanks to the New York Times.
Thank you, New York
So
Times.
situation started at 11:33. By 11:43, 10 minutes later, the school itself publicly announced that it was under lockdown due to gunshots in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And that at that point, that gets everybody's attention, especially the parents. And they start to group up more and more outside the building at that point. At 12:17, about 45 minutes after it started, the school confirmed there's an active shooter on the campus. But between that time, there are reports that I am not going to go through the effort of independently verifying at this time because it's not really my job. And I trust most of the major news organizations that are reporting about this and having interviews with these parents themselves. But we have reports of parents being tased and arrested by the police in that period where they're doing nothing. And particularly damning is one report from a mother who was on the scene, who was arrested by the police, who was familiar with one of the officers. And when that officer saw that she was being held, had her released because, yeah, no shit, you shouldn't be arresting parents when you got this shit going on.
Yeah.
But she then went and basically just went around the back of the building and got over a fence and got her own children out.
I mean, that's badass. I'm.
It is, but it also shows how poor they were set up. They
Yeah.
had officers in the hall in the building, so they seemed to have a pretty good idea, at least, that they had this gunman stuck in this room where he was killing everybody. But then they just completely neglected everything else.
Yeah.
The official line, from what I understand, is that the gunmen locked themselves in the room, and there's just no way to open a door by force that the police have access to. So they decided to take their time and have the janitor go and find a key.
What?
From what I understand, that is what they had happen.
I'm not saying this to be funny. I'm saying this just to emphasize the absurdity of this. But that sounds like a Reno 911 sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. It sounds like a parody.
Yeah. That's absolutely unacceptable.
And the only thing that would make sense is if they thought it wasn't an active shooter, but instead a hostage situation kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to do anything to provoke the shooter to start killing kids, right?
Yeah.
That is the only thing that makes sense. But they are getting constant 911 calls from people inside the rooms saying that people are dead, people are being shot. They know that that's not the case.
No. Ugh. I'm sorry. I got a very sour taste in my mouth now after hearing that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't imagine being in that situation right there. That's so alien to me to think about like how powerless like the parents felt and how everything must have felt just in that moment. And to know like the people that were supposed to reach a resolution were just letting the moment continue.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then in the aftermath of it, what little coverage, like Okay, what is this? Uh, Chief Stephen McGraw. We haven't gotten into the why. We know the individual was also into cyber gaming in that regard and group gaming.
Wow.
Just same tired shit
Yeah.
of, oh, it's not our failing to prevent people from having unlimited access to firearms. It's not our complete failure of addressing mental health problems in the US. It's those video games. And one of the best parts that I've seen is people trying to act like knife crime is just as bad. And the favorite response that I've seen to it, because I've been on Twitter a fair bit this week, full of disclosure.
Yeah.
One of the best ones that I've seen is somebody who has the fucking. They have about, I think, 2 brain cells that they rub together real hard to cook this one up. Quoted a mass stabbing incident where 16 people were stabbed and 2 of them died.
Okay.
So that means that 16 people were stabbed in total. 14 of them lived.
Yeah.
And only 2 died. And that is their key example of why knives are just as dangerous as guns.
Pretty great right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long was that stabbing
No.
incident? How fast
Yeah.
did that go?
No flaws in their logic whatsoever.
I don't know what you're talking about, Kyril. I mean, like, so here's the thing. There was a guy who wanted to incite violence, right? And they had a weapon, and they stabbed 14 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That 14 is less than 19. So, do you see the logic there? That
Mm-hmm.
knife was made a number of people hurt.
Yes.
Yes, good sir.
We have some changing gears slightly,
Oh, yes.
but going over to one of the reasons why nothing will likely change is the continued sagas of the clear conservative majority that we have on the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
So, Washington Post article, so I can't read it. Thanks, Washington Post. But apparently, one of the court cases that's being considered right now is related to school vouchers.
Like
And
for lunches?
the no, for like school of choice,
Oh,
public
no.
school.
That's worse. Okay, go on.
Yes, it's much worse. The gist of this is a case in Maine where uh, Maine has to provide, what is it, a free public education K through 12 for all students. In some areas, it provides vouchers instead, and then puts conditions on how the parents can use those vouchers. This court case is with regard to those vouchers going toward religious schools,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. And it very much seems that the Supreme Court is going to be ruling that public dollars can go directly to these vouchers for students to then go to explicitly religious education systems.
So you mean to tell me that this vendor and this voucher system, which is supposed to reward like people, I'm sorry. There's no way for me to frame the irony of that. That's just a positive feedback loop for people who are fanatically obsessed with providing a certain type of education versus a more varied education.
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like those whole systems of like rewarding like very targeted demographics of schools to make even more generations of targeted demographic students is just perpetuating a power system that may or may not benefit the people who made that rule.
Mm-hmm.
God. Oh well. I wish life was fun again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ever think we were just in the wrong business, Kyril, for trying to, preach a medium? We should just go like full on religious, like give us your money for Jesus.
Oh my god. I actually watched a video this week. Carlos Maza, who used to be a journalist for Fox. He's I think it's fair to say he's fairly left wing. Um, put out a really great video on the recent Turning Point USA conference that they had called like America Fest or some stupid shit. Um, really great video he put out breaking it down. Charlie Kirk and Head Empty Fascism. Highly recommend. Very good watch. About 50 minutes. But he watched it because now that we're kind of in like this toss-up period between Trump Republicans and possibly some other Republican taking the forefront of the party, with the election coming up in 2 years,
Yeah.
he wanted to see like what is their policy, what do they plan to do if they get power back, and it is unsurprising given what they did when they had that power last, but still pretty depressing that the answer is basically nothing. They don't have plans to really do anything. They just want to kind of, get up and talk a lot. And then that's kind of it.
Well, I
They
feel
talk, they
yeah.
make people angry, and nothing happens, for better or for worse.
I get this
But by
real
nothing happening, it does get worse.
my apologies.
Oh, you're good.
I get this real weird like impression from Republicans and a lot of right wingers more that they're more obsessed with the culture wars than the actual politics of this country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For this being a political event that he was talking about here and doing this synopsis of, it was disturbingly religious. To the degree of like Ted Cruz standing up and talking about how they're all going to be welcomed into the grace of God kind of shit.
Great.
Yeah.
Because when I think of like, old man Jesus, dying for our sins and, being a generally kind of cool person, the person I love to
Mhm.
think being his spokesman is, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Mr. I'm going to go leave my state out of power and go on a well-deserved trip to Jamaica.
Mhm.
Yeah. Fuck Ted
The
Cruz.
voice of reason.
Yeah. I feel like there's just such a divorce between like regular Christianity and like right-wing Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, there is.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing
Isn't it?
because there's people who legitimately think that climate change and the outcomes of it are intentional and that welcome it,
You're just going
because
to
that means they want cataclysm.
yeah.
It it's bizarre.
They must live in a place that won't be impacted too far by climate change.
Oh no, they to a degree want to die because then they get to go to heaven. It's this entirely perverse way of thinking that has been completely divorced from the actual text that they claim to preach, and is bolstered by these, like you're saying, the churches, these mega churches and pastors that are only in it for a quick buck, that just do whatever the hell they need to and say whatever they need to keep people riled up and engaged.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not even religion at this point as much as it's sensationalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I would love I don't have the time for this. and I will probably never have the time for this, and I don't even have a theology degree to do this, so I'm going to have to pay a theologian to do this. But to like
Yep.
watch one of those broadcasts of a megachurch and just see how much like that would like hold up in say like a Vatican scenario with like the actual like
Mhm.
closer to the old traditions of the religion itself.
Oh yeah, it doesn't.
It
It
doesn't.
doesn't at all.
No.
They pick and choose whatever they want and ignore the rest.
Well, what they're not selling you isn't religion, it's a lifestyle. They're making you feel good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's the same way. Oh, what the hell is that? A really good piece that I saw talking about uh generally COVID, but more plagues as a metaphor. Included some looks back at like news pieces during like the Spanish flu
okay.
and the responses to it. And there's this contrast between because they still had conspiracy theories and shit back then, you know?
Mhm.
It's not something new to our time period. There's still people who are preaching hate, you know, saying that it's, you know, such and such group bringing it in or whatever. But at the same time, you also had religious figures, people who were looked up to, who were coming out here and being like, yeah, the doctors know what they're talking about. You should probably listen to them and stop this conspiracy shit. And then today we have the complete opposite of that, where it is from the pulpit that a lot of this religious conspiracy comes from.
Yeah.
It's just such an about face to see how it's changed over the last 100 or so years. And you don't even have to really go back that far. You know, when did Fox News start, right?
Good
That's the
quote.
gist of it.
Yeah.
I've often wondered how much it would take to make a foil to Fox News. Just make an equally engaging news platform, because that's all that it gets watched for. People
Mhm.
don't care if it's true or not. They just care that it makes them feel something in their empty lives. And hate is easy to make people feel. Um, and it seems like it would be so easy to just start a rival platform and just leech off of that.
Well, they do
You
something like
know?
that. You know, there's Newsmax, there's OAN.
No, but those are clearly just like profit wise. We have long and we still have the problem in the US of Democrat politicians just being giant fucking cowards.
Well, yeah.
They don't want to do anything because they're worried it'll look bad.
Got to please those numbers.
Yeah. It seems like if you know if they wanted to, they could easily take care of so much stuff. You know, play dirty a little bit, so to say. But they constantly take this bullshit high road messaging. And then you get people like AOC and Bernie Sanders who come in and challenge that, and they get shunned as outsiders.
Well, yeah. The whole point of a party isn't to like actually, you know, have like a political message or anything like that. It's branding purposes, Kyril. And they broke
Oh
the
yeah,
brand guides.
I'd love to see it. We need because I mean that's what Fox News started on. It's rich people trying to keep their money by influencing mass media in targeted, intentional ways.
Yeah. The media is the massage, dude. Marshall McLuhan.
I don't know. I feel like we're at the point now. I've seen some talk about this, and I guess it'd be a question of how much people want to put their money where their mouth is, where the number of millionaires has gotten to the point where they're like not even the 1% anymore, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there should be a way to basically just do like NPR, but we don't give a fuck anymore, and we're just gonna say whatever the hell we want, like pseudo publicly funded kind of thing.
Well, fancy that you say that, good Kyril, because right now I'm announcing the Two Schmoes Patreon to our loyal viewers. God.
Hey.
for just $1 a month, and I know our users can donate $1 a month, you too can get great inquisitive content like and
De- depression
yeah.
and anxiety and occasionally existential dread.
So join the Two Schmoes Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. All you have to lose is your quality of life. God. Oh no, but seriously, yeah. Uh, you see, I've always liked the NPR model a lot. The problem I have with that is I think we're a little too late to ever get any use out of it ever again because news isn't news anymore. It's more that people are using that to justify their own opinions. And
Yep.
at this point, all a news platform like NPR would do nowadays is just have to keep targeting whatever opinions produce the greatest amount of money. Same thing with Fox News, CNN, 24-hour news networks in general. My opinion is that
Yep.
we need to go back to dedicated appointment news periods because news is better when you're not constantly reporting it and you're able to actually like take out the material, look through it, comb through it, get the actual story instead of updating every little piece of news and like hope that the misery porn of it all keeps people engaged.
Yeah. There was actually the Fairness Doctrine, repealed in 1987. What do you know? What a coincidence. I wonder when things started to go downhill.
Wait,
Fairness
1987 you said?
Doctrine, yes,
Okay.
it was when the Fairness Doctrine was repealed. It was a FCC, Federal Communications Commission policy that required licensed radio and television broadcasters to present fair and balanced coverage of controversial issues of interest to their communities. Oh yeah, included by granting equal airtime to opposing candidates for public office. Emergence of the Fairness Doctrine lay in the Radio Act 1927, which limited radio broadcasts to licensed broadcasters but mandated that licensees serve the public interest. Federal Communications Act 1934 supplanted the Radio Act and created the FCC. And in 1949, they produced the Fairness Doctrine, which, hey, what do you know, was repealed.
Because fairness ain't good. By the way,
Everything went down from there.
for anybody that was curious, I put a picture of Ronald Reagan in our chat.
Yeah.
Because it's always fucking Reagan.
Yep.
Yeah. Who did he run against?
Who knows? Find it. It's easy enough to look up.
I was about to say, because I want to know who the alternative was.
I want to say Bob Dole.
Bob Dole. Looks like he beat Jimmy Carter.
Did he?
Seems like it.
Yep, he did.
Okay. Damn, did he sweep? That's unfortunate.
If that isn't an example of how, I mean, he didn't though. Oh right, okay.
What?
Let me see if I can. I'm pretty sure I remember this. Carter lost a lot of votes to third-party votes. Was the short of it.
Oh,
Because you can see with Reagan only had 50.4% of total votes.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, he got like 90% of the electoral college or something like that.
That's kind of what I meant by him sweeping.
489.
Mhm.
Yeah. 88% of states. Yep.
Oh well. I didn't vote in that election. You can't get mad at me.
Mondale. That was the other one I was thinking of when Reagan got reelected. By an even greater number.
Do you have a favorite president, Kyril?
No,
Oh,
they're all kind of. Well, like yes, if I had to sit down and pick one, I'm sure I could, but like they all are deeply flawed.
I think the position of a president in general is a deeply flawed position.
Yep.
A little too much centralization in that position for me. But then you get Congress. Oh well.
Yeah, I pretty strongly believe that the current systems that we uh, have been intentionally set up to fail at this point, and that short of basically starting over or sweeping systemic changes, we're never going to get real solutions.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think our system is antiquated to a certain extent, and we've kind of grown past it. And at this point, you need to reevaluate a lot of like the balances and powers so that we
Yep.
don't have bipartisanship like this, make everything grind to a standstill unless things like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, are very obviously wrong, which at this point they are obviously wrong, but bipartisanship still says no.
Yep. We're definitely coming up on a very important year here, being a midterm election.
Mm.
I'm not optimistic. The only way that we're going to see any change is if we get like a strict, true Democrat majority following the midterms, and I don't believe that's going to happen.
What we need to do is get a cloning machine, right? And
Yeah,
then we're going to take Bernie Sanders and we're just going to shove him in there, and we're going to get like an army of Bernies marching against the country.
that'd be nice. We have the problem right now where, with the way that the Senate is stacked, all conservatives have to do is not lose, where Democrats have to win.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a big difference, but that's a huge difference. If you just have to play to not lose, you can play way looser, and we're seeing the outcomes of that.
This is why you don't feed a whole generation lead poisoning.
Yeah.
Get them yummy microplastics like us Zoomers. Yum yum in my tum tum. So are we depressed enough yet?
I suppose.
Yeah. We went from school shootings
No.
to religion to
I just got to
politics.
the I just got I just
Sorry.
got to the 2000 election.
Oh.
Time to get real sad.
Did you see that video of Bush admitting like having the Freudian slip?
Mm. Oh yeah.
This is beautiful.
It's so frustrating. Where's Florida? Show me this bullshit. God.
What? What's wrong? What's up with Florida?
In the 2000 election?
Yeah.
So in the 2000 election, quick history lesson, George W. Bush beat Al Gore by 5 electoral votes.
Oh.
Florida was a contentious state which awarded 25 electoral votes. In the final results, Bush was given Florida over Gore by a difference of 500 votes.
Mm.
2,912,790 to 2,912,253. And a combination of third party candidates, as well as pretty blatant meddling by the justice systems. There's a whole fucking subsection on the Florida recount here in the Wikipedia article. Basically, was that a Republican judge gave Bush the win because they wouldn't allow It was either I'm pretty sure let me skip real quick because it was either that they threw out certain votes or they wouldn't allow an additional recount.
How do you throw out? Okay, I know that's a terrible thing to say, but this is 2000 before we had like the big quote unquote the election was stolen. But how do you throw out votes back then?
So the what I understand here is that Florida awarded the Electoral College to Bush.
Uh,
Challenges were made on it, arguing that a recount needed to happen.
mm-hmm.
That went its way through the Florida courts, where the Florida Supreme Court agreed and said that a recount needed to occur. That was then appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States, that ruled that a recount would be unconstitutional and sent it back down to the Florida Supreme Court without giving an actual ruling, but basically saying, yeah, you guys messed up on this one, do it again. But when they did it with only 2 hours remaining until the deadline for a recount being allowed to happen, meaning that because the Supreme Court sat on it, uh, the recount could not occur. And the last count, the one that gave it to Bush by like 500 votes, had to be accepted.
Wow. I love politics, everybody. Just wanted to say
Fucking
that.
fucking Ralph Nader.
Fucking Ralph Nader. I laugh, but it's a pain laugh.
I personally don't trust anybody who runs under the Green Party.
Really?
Year after year, we see this. Oh yeah, if the Green Party didn't exist, Gore would have won in 2000, and Hillary would have won in 2016. Or sorry, yeah, in 2016.
Was it really up to the fact that the Green Party just got too much information? I know too much attention.
To a point, yeah.
Really?
Clinton had a clear majority of the total votes. She had like 3 million more than Trump did.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't really say for sure if it would go one way or the other. But the Green Party sucked up about 1% of the total votes that were cast, and that is easily enough to sway key districts that would have put it into Clinton's favor.
Great. Mm-hmm.
So, third, in any other political system, voting for the candidate who best represents you is absolutely what should happen. But the American political system is so fucked up that voting for the candidate that best represents you often is the worst thing that you can do, because it gives, in effect, those votes in key areas to the opponent. That's why it's fucked up. It is incredibly broken.
Just waiting on that Republican Party to break in two because of Trumpism.
Oh, it won't.
I know.
Not at this point. I wish it would as well, but it never will. If it didn't after 2016, nothing's going to change it.
I would say if it didn't after 2020, mainly because of the whole insurrection bullshit. I feel like that would be a big tipping point for a lot of people, like any other like political party in the world. If like people like acting on behalf of your candidate, like committed like a federal fraud, I mean treason like that, I would say that's a good point to start rethinking your party. But the fact that after 2020 that didn't happen, well, I'm sorry, the insurrection happened, that's kind of crazy.
Yep. All right. We should, at some point, probably switch to some more lighter stuff before
Never.
vibe is entirely dead. Um, Kenobi started up this week
Yes, how was it?
to mixed reviews. I enjoyed it so far. I can appreciate what they're trying to go for with it, and I am optimistic to seeing the next episode.
Hmm. What's so special about it?
It so I it does a really good job of okay, it does two things wrong that I'll start off with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The best part about so many other parts of like these sort of like Star Wars side stuff is that it doesn't make you think about the main story. It doesn't make you like question like, wait, what's actually happening? You know, like Rogue One is a great example of it. It is a good self-contained story with implications to the greater story, but it doesn't call into question anything that happened before then, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Kenobi, the whole premise is that it is 10 years after episode 3. Kenobi is in hiding, keeping an eye out over a young Luke, sort of discreetly, and just generally trying to live a normal life outside the eye of anybody thinking he's a Jedi. Because there is now this group of Sith called the Inquisitors that are going around trying to hunt down the last remaining Jedi and sort of close it all out, you know, finish everything out.
Kyril, the Last
Which,
Jedi's in like 3 more movies. You're getting a little ahead
yeah.
of yourself.
Well, that's kind of the weird thing, though,
What's up?
because they give this very clear perspective, both in the original trilogy and at the end of episode 3, that the destruction of the Jedi was fairly absolute, barring a handful of key players.
Yeah.
But that's apparently not the case now. There are just Jedi kind of vibing all over the galaxy, in addition to just an entire group of new Sith, not lords, but force wielders.
So like
And
baby
that seems
Sith.
very, yeah, it seems very contrary to what was presented in the wider story, you know?
I remember like in the books they had like a whole thing about like
Mm-hmm.
Jedi hunters, but not like Sith, like full on Sith.
Yeah, these are full on, as far as I can tell. Even at one point, Obi-Wan says that the Inquisitors, in some number, are former Jedi, which implies not only that Jedi were surviving, but then they also switched to the Sith.
I mean, go with the winning team,
And,
bro.
it's weird.
Yeah. So the big question is, did they do anything with Darth Vader yet?
Technically, I guess he has been referenced.
Oh, lame.
I'll say okay, so I can say this without being any spoilers. The first like minute and a half is a bit of a flashback to what happens in the prequel movies
Okay.
leading up to this point. And it ends with a scene in the Jedi Temple at the end of the third movie with the stormtroopers overrunning the place. I guess the point of it is to imply that there's this group of like 5 younglings that get away. And I guess maybe that's the Jedi that are being hunted. Otherwise, it doesn't really make much sense as opening piece. But I was really hoping that it would have ended differently than it did, because it has this long shot of a Jedi Master fighting off stormtroopers as they come in waves and waves and waves, trying to protect these younglings, sort of escort them through the halls and get them to safety. And it ends with her fighting off the last of the stormtroopers, but after being shot up a lot in the process and falling to her death.
Mm.
Just dies, which, makes sense. You get shot a lot. That's going to happen.
Unfortunately.
I would have loved for at that point where it has just the group of younglings and they go to turn to run, if they like called back to the Vader lightsaber scene where it's just the red lightsaber on the black background.
Ooh.
That would have been spicy, just to have that contrast of like, yup, it's still that timeline. But they didn't. It just cuts to the title credits at that point. which also stood out. Maybe they did this in Mandalorian. I haven't watched it, but they do this very Marvel-esque thing of like flashing faces and into the Star Wars logo kind of thing. Very Marvel-esque, and it kind of stood out.
Oh, you mean like the opening to
Yeah,
Marvel?
yeah, like the opening credit thing that they do, where it
Really?
just throws up the Marvel logo.
Huh.
They did a very similar thing, flashing up Star Wars characters through the movies, culminating in it panning out to reveal the Star Wars logo.
That
It,
I've got this
very
feeling.
much like,
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
you can copy my homework, don't make it obvious kind of thing.
Disney really wants Star Wars to be as big as Marvel.
They do. I would not be surprised if they're frustrated that it's not.
Well, that's what you get for fucking making the last. I'm not sorry, not the Last Jedi. The Rise of Skywalker. You deserve it, Disney.
They know what they did.
Unforgivable. We may have had gotten Dark World, but I will take Dark World over Rise of Skywalker.
Mhm.
Yes.
So all that considered, though, I did really enjoy watching this. I mean, it made me really enjoy. Is not. I mean, it's a bit too strong. I liked it.
Okay.
It was really good to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, now that Ewan McGregor himself is older, portraying this older Kenobi. It fit really well. You can see there's like a bit of gray in his hair. He's very clearly much rougher visually. You know, he's just looks worn and tired.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they do this really good bit when they first introduce him into the story, where they show him on Tatooine working at like what must be their equivalent of a fishmonger, where there's like this big dead behemoth of an animal that they're carving the flesh out of for processing in the middle of the desert. It's very kind of weird, but in like a good way, in like a, oh, so this is a glimpse into how they survive in this world and what they do and what their industry kind of looks like.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool just from a world building perspective. But it is a very, maybe like 30 seconds of like the end of the workday where he's, cleaning up his tools and getting ready to walk out. And he slips away a piece of the meat that they are cutting up for that day. Clearly, not supposed to be doing that kind of thing. He's being discreet about it. And has one of these other workers who goes to punch out and gets his wages for the day. And he's just like, wait a minute, this is like half of what we had before. And the boss is just like, you'll get what you fucking get or you'll get nothing. And like punches him in the chest and knocks him down or something. And you can see this really good facial acting from Ewan where he is like clearly very upset that this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
but trying to remain his composure so as not to out his real identity, kind of thing. And it's just this really good, subtle conflict that comes across on his face of just like pain and frustration, but knowing that he can't do anything. It's really good. It's really effective.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was his performances in some of the quieter scenes were some of the high points for me in watching
Hmm.
it. Unfortunately, it's around that point where they take a hard turn and start to show a young Leia
What?
on, yeah, on whatever their planet is. Yeah, it's weird. It was not what I expected, nor necessarily wanted to see, and it definitely feels like it goes on for a bit too long. I guess it makes sense more going into the second episode. I don't want to get into too many details, but there's a reason that they go with that one in the first one, and given that they launched part one and part two kind of at the same time, um, it's easy to just jump into the second one right away and not have to really worry about like, oh, why are they doing this weird turn that I didn't expect? Uh, but it is definitely not expected.
Hmm. Like What do they get out of doing? Are they trying to do an origin story for the iconic "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope"?
No,
Okay, thank God.
no, it doesn't. I mean, they to a degree maybe in the sense that it does lead into Leia being aware of Obi-Wan's existence at all. Um, but for the story that they're telling now, it feels pretty out of left field.
Yeah.
Um, First episode's writing is not the strongest throughout, and it definitely feels a bit weaker there, where it feels like you're taking a step away from the story to do that part when you're not. It's a presentation thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Lingers in certain spots too long and goes through others a bit too quickly. Um, so that said, I think that looking at the Rotten Tomato scores right now, I think they're pretty accurate. Like 8 out of 10 is what it's sitting at right now, and I think that's fair. It's by no means perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but neither is it a waste of your time. It is fun to watch, and it does give some good glimpses into aspects of the world of Star Wars that we haven't seen yet.
Is there really anything in Star Wars we haven't? Okay, I know the answer to that, but I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
we've known Star Wars for a
Okay,
good almost 50
so
years now. Yeah.
for me as a more casual fan of it, who's only seen the movies, yes,
Okay, that's a better way of putting it.
getting to see, especially with Obi-Wan's trying to live a normal life on Tatooine, seeing what normal people are doing isn't something that we get a lot because of the strong focus on the heroes and the villains and origins of those characters. We don't get to see the hardships that, just some guy basically working at a factory has to deal with, because guy working, only unless that guy working at a factory is Obi-Wan. So getting to see that happen from a very genuine sense, because Obi-Wan is legitimately trying to not reveal himself,
Mm-hmm.
is a welcome change.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It all comes back to the world building of it. You get to see, like, how long do we spend on Tatooine at all in the Star Wars movies, right? You're there at, like, the very start in episode 4 in the original trilogy. There's a couple of bits here and there where they go back, but on the whole, they really aren't there all that often. Even though it is very formative for the character.
Yeah.
So getting to see what that environment is and how different it is, say, for Luke than Anakin, even though they basically come from the same beginnings, I think is important. It gives perspective.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I respect that.
yeah. It is definitely not a waste of time like some other pieces have been. Small aside,
Yo.
they would do better for actually using more CG at times, because there's some practical effects that they use that are very clearly practical effects and not in a good way. It has, like, it's really hard for Disney as a whole, I'm sure, especially with Star Wars, with how much shit they've gotten on both sides, between having, like, oh, the CG Yoda looks like ass, and then they put the puppet Yoda in, everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's ooh. But then they have it in this one again. I'm strongly of the opinion that, like, if you have good CG, and they do, you should just use it,
I think we are
because
past
it
the
looks
golden
awkward.
age of puppets at this point, where we will never
Absolutely.
go back to the same way puppets used to be made.
Absolutely.
I'm going to miss it. Honestly, I kind of want to do like my own Jim Henson thing where I want to make my own puppet, but I can only imagine how expensive it is to make one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Takes a ton of work, I'm sure.
Yeah. Did we watch anything else of note that we should bring up?
I haven't, but there is some. You have.
Oh God, I'm going to have
I
to talk
haven't.
about
You
it.
have though. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I
You're gonna
have
have
to
to
talk
talk about
about
it
it. Shouldn't have told you I saw
because
that.
it's doing a lot better than I expected. You know. So
It's,
I mean, I think that gives credit for it, even though that it has kind of the airs of where its predecessors might have failed. This one is clearly doing something right.
I am less than 24 hours after seeing the Bob's Burgers movie, ladies and
Mm-hmm.
gentlemen. And I will tell you this, it's a good. It's a good, but it's not great.
Yeah.
It feels very unfinished at times. Like the animation's very good. And I think what they end up doing in this movie is that they had a choice between making this movie with the animation that they have in this film, which is very good animation, or making a longer movie with less good animation. And I don't know which one would have been the right decision because this movie feels a little unfinished. Because what Bob's Burgers does is sets itself up as a musical, but the musical numbers are far and few between, and it doesn't make sense of why they have so little music and they started off like a musical. That is something that I've been trying to figure out how to justify. And I'm told that originally they were pitching this as a musical. So, where the fuck is my musical numbers? Care to guess how many musical numbers there are in this film, Carol?
10.
3.
Oh, that's not really a musical then.
Yeah, I know. But they're like they have a really good opening number and it works. There's a Carney song where they get some Carnies to sing, and then there's a villain song, and that's it.
Mm, that's disappointing.
Yeah, and each song is fully choreographed with like a big sequence and everything. So obviously they had plans to like develop these and not just make these like little one-off songs.
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't know. I don't know what their idea of was for this movie because it feels unfinished. And like it's weird because you have 5 main characters in the film. The 5 members of Bob's Burger family. Um, you have Burger Man, you have Burger Woman, Burger Child 1, Burger Child 2, and Burger Child 3. And they're all supposed to have character arcs. They like at least set up the Burger Children and Bob to have a character arc. And then the mother, Burger Woman, does not get a burger arc. And it's weird because like they kind of hint that the Bob's arc and his wife's arc are supposed to be entwined because they're married and whatnot. But she does absolutely fuck all in this
Yeah.
movie other than wearing a burger costume. And I don't know, it just feels empty at times with some of the writing. And I get it. Like, probably COVID messed this up, but at least the animation was good. What was that? I believe you were about to say something and I really cut you off because I'm a dick.
No, I'm good.
Oh,
I didn't have anything.
okay. But yeah, also, it's a murder mystery, and I solved the murder mystery at the beginning of the movie, which made the mystery part of it not as fun. So, very sad about that. Apparently, there's a 4th song in this film that they did not include. That I apparently missed a 4th song in this movie, according to IMDb.
Mm.
So that's sad.
Yeah. I have to give it credit just for being an animated, TV show, the movie that isn't a complete flop.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly good for what it is. Um, the problem I have with this movie is that I look at the title, the Bob's Burgers movie,
Mm.
and my mind doesn't go to Bob's or burgers or even the. I look at movie, so I'm automatically
Yep.
going to start making this like I hold the to a higher degree than the actual like it's a show, the movie kind of thing. I don't know. I hold it up to the same standards I would give any movie.
Given that it's subtle, the usual way that this is done is like blank the movie.
Yeah.
And credit where it's due, having it be the Bob's Burgers movie does help it not be quite so generic in that regard. Um, but I still feel like it's a terrible title, and I hope it's just being done for like satire at this point because that's what everyone does. But it is still pretty rough. The best way that I've had it heard it put is that anything that has the movie in the title is only doing that because it has to remind you that this is actually a movie, and
This
that's not a great thing.
yeah, this could easily have been 3 episodes of Bob's Burgers. Yeah. Like I do get a sense of the budget for this, which is why like I kind of want to hold it to higher terms cuz like they put money into this. They put actual work and like technically speaking,
Oh yeah.
like just on the technical side of animation, how it looks, perfectly good. Really good movie. Probably one of the better like
Yep.
2D animated films out there at the moment. This film also taught me a dark secret about this world.
What's
Pe-
that?
People who like go to these movies and it are like going I like how do I put this without sounding really rude and mean? Cuz like this isn't to everybody, but lots of Bob's Burgers fans aren't as funny as they think they are. And we talked about this.
Yep.
Yes. But again, not all Bob's Burgers fans are this way. Oh well. That may just be a symptom of the human condition, though. Thinking you're more interesting or more uh, anything than you actually are.
Definitely could be.
So what I'm basically saying, everybody, is Bob's Burgers is the next Citizen Kane. You need to go watch it, or else you will be dumber than a brick, and we'll have to euthanize you and castrate you if you're a man, so you don't infect the gene pool. And
For
I'm
your
just
own
sorry.
good.
Yeah, it's for your own good. Should have went to go see Bob's Burgers, bitch. That's what I'm gonna say as I rip out your testicles.
In other movies,
Yo.
we have the Downton Abbey movie, which is for me, Downton Abbey is kind of like you know how like some people have like guilty pleasure like music,
Yeah.
where it'll be like, you know, like, oh yeah, I listen to Taylor Swift or something like that. Downton Abbey kind of fills that role for me in terms of TV because it's like objectively not great, but it's well put together and it is entertaining kind of by very much intention because of it.
So I am a filthy American casual who doesn't know anything about Downtown Abbey. Mr. Kyrol, will you explain what a Downtown Abbey is?
Uh, I can try.
Oh God.
So, Downton Abbey is it's kind of hilarious. I am shocked that it's done as well as it has given current political climes because it's very much like just proselytizing rich people to like the greatest extent of literal lordship in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Uh, but given that, it has still done very well. It follows the I don't know if their last, I believe their name is actually Downton, but it follows this family who is centered around a lord in the United Kingdom, um, and follows them over many years through the often like literal growing up of the characters, starting as like you know teenagers and young adults, growing into adults themselves over the period of time that they've been doing it, and follows them through that time period, starting in like the start of the First World War, through the First World War, and now coming into like what would be, I guess, like the 20s, where you're starting to get into like film being a thing that exists, and music, and starting to become a bit more rebellious as we get into that kind of period. And the big draw for me in this is to get this very strict perspective period piece, because realistically the average person isn't going to agree with the opinions of most of the characters, because they are very much a white early 1900s family that is extravagantly wealthy to an obscene degree. So, you know, their views aren't necessarily going to hold up over time, but it does do what seems to be at least an accurate job of portraying them.
Hmm.
And having it be a period piece in that sense is something that I find interesting. But you can only do that for so long. You know, that's one of the big things why, like, uh, the World War One period is so interesting, because for what it's worth, we do have a lot of media around war from the perspective of like being on the front lines, fighting. You don't have it from the sisters and the mothers and the grandmothers back home who are trying to fill in the roles of their husbands that are over fighting and over the channel,
Hmm.
dealing with the outcomes and the consequences of things that they weren't prepared for. And one of the interesting things that they did in that is showing how uh, one of the, I believe it's one of like the older daughters, really steps into more of a leadership role because of necessity, because all the men of the house are gone and there's not really a choice. And that changes the character's motivations and personality throughout the rest of the show. And I just find stuff like that interesting. It does a good job of it. It's very well produced. It's very slick. It's very visually interesting, very visually appealing. So they have a new movie coming out here that is set to kind of, you know, present a fresh perspective again, as they're physically moving location from the perennial Downton estate in the United Kingdom down to a sort of like French villa in the south of France, which is a very different location and just presents a big shakeup in terms of not only the location itself, but the dynamics of, you know, these people being at the very top to being not necessarily the only ones at the top anymore. You know,
Are,
they have equals of their own at this place.
are they going to be beheaded?
Probably not. I think
Oh.
this is a little after that time period.
I'm just saying, I don't know if French people, I mean, if rich people like to go to France because of that, you know, bad reputation and whatnot.
It's just one of it is the only place that they can go in Europe that has real beaches that isn't Italy.
Is that true?
Pretty much. Like when you just like look at Europe, you know, in the UK, you have beaches technically, but you're in Britain still. Who wants to be in Britain?
Nobody, not even the British. That's why they
Exactly.
that's why they literally conquered the whole world to try and get out of there.
But you do kind of have to go south far enough to like the south of France, Italy, Spain, Portugal to get the climate warm enough that it's like it'd be like going to the beach here. Like, yeah, you can do it, but there's a reason people generally set up shop in Florida for the summer.
Hmm. That's weird. I just never thought of like Europe being so low on beaches.
Oh yeah, and they aren't necessarily.
Yeah,
That's just where the very desirable ones are because it stays warm pretty much year round,
of course.
or at least warm enough.
That's where Putin and his daughters hang out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is doing very well. It's not surprising, you know, you throw enough money and effort at anything, it'll do well enough. Uh, But this is also a series going on to like its sixth year. So, in order for something like this to continue to do well and not just run out of steam, it does require something different to happen. So, it can't just be more of the same.
Of course. Otherwise, you get The Simpsons, and we don't want to talk about The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm. Curious, just while we're sort of on that bit, wondering if Futurama has like an actual date. I heard that like the full cast was confirmed that everyone was going to be involved again. Excuse me.
Hell yeah. Maggio time.
Mm-hmm. They got John DiMaggio. So 2023 is when it's slated for. I'm excited for it. I hope it's like, given how many times they've had to reboot Futurama already, I'm confident they'll be able to do it again.
At this point, I'm considering that Futurama never gets canceled. They just go on breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extended hiatus.
Yeah, it's literally just that.
We do have one more movie.
Oh no.
It's doing even more surprisingly better than the Bob's Burgers movie. We have Top Gun Maverick,
Oh yeah.
which is sitting at a 97% critic rating and a 99% audience rating with over 300 critic reviews.
So I'm gonna call bullshit on all those critic reviews that gave it like positive.
Yeah.
Look at their fucking profiles and tell me if they're above the age of 40 or not.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just nostalgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say this though. One of the really surprising things that I've seen from the sentiment on social media
Yo,
is the amount of people that are speaking positively from it who aren't in the US.
what?
Because the first Top Gun was popular enough, but it's always been very US centric. It
Yeah.
is effectively American, it's Air Force propaganda to a point.
Yeah.
But I have seen a huge number of people outside the US tweeting about how, yeah, they went and saw it and they really liked it. It was just a really good movie. And that is so bizarre to me.
There's no way.
From the looks of it, though, just skimming the pictures here, there's a pretty wide variety of critics that are reviewing it favorably.
Now I know why the alt right doesn't like diversity. That was terrible.
Oh my god. Armand White gave it a positive review.
Who's Armand White?
The guy who hates everything.
No, that's I Hate Everything, the YouTuber dude. Come on.
No, no, no. Let me see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure Armand White is just like notoriously hard. Like, he is like the quintessential contrarian.
I refuse to believe this, but I'm going to see what's
He
going
was
to happen.
kicked out of the New York Film Critics Circle.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh.
But I'm just trying to figure this out because I could have sworn that this. I'm almost certain this is like the ultra contrarian guy. Let me see if I can find it here. Where he like always gives negative reviews to like Doctor Strange, he gave it a rotten score. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, he gave it a rotten score.
Well, that's just because he hates Nicolas Cage. I don't know how you could say no to that movie.
Probably. The Batman gave a rotten score. Cyrano, rotten. Big Bug, 47%. Good movie. It's like shit like that.
You know, I've always thought of maybe going like full on contrarian just for the fun of it.
It feels like it would get exhausting though.
That's kind of what stops me from doing it. Because, like, I want to just I want to be the guy who just picks some fights sometimes. And
West Side Story, Tick Tick Boom, both overwhelmingly positive scores. Give it a negative one.
okay, this guy's just a fucking prick.
It's wild. French Dispatch, negative. Last Night in Soho, negative. Dune, negative.
Does he get like beat up on the streets by just people or like
I don't know.
what? Okay, can we pull up like his highest reviewed movies?
Uh, it's hard to say because he doesn't really seem to give like a letter score or a
Okay.
number score,
Yeah.
It's just based on sentiment, but I'm pretty sure he uploads his own stuff to Rotten Tomatoes and the usual aggregate sites, though. So he gets to choose if he gives it a plus or a minus.
Yeah.
I could have sworn, what is it? I gotta see if I can find out what it is. There's a website where people can like basically log. It's like a social media kind of thing where you can log all the
Letterbox.
movies you've seen. Letterbox, thank you. I'm pretty sure he's on Letterbox.
I've thought about starting a two Schmoes letterbox, but it's like no point. Hmm.
Um,
Yo.
but yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of stuff. The way the Rotten Tomatoes works, it makes it hard. This guy reviews a lot of movies, so like Fiddler's Journey to the Big Screen, a movie that released apparently this year, has 20 reviews, 100%, and he gave it a positive one. So it's like,
I opened up Letterboxd's top films of the week, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is still at number one.
yeah,
Okay, so I've had some time to like sit on Everything Everywhere All at Once,
yes,
and as much as I still agree this is a very, very, very good movie,
mm-hmm.
this strikes me a little bit as like a baby's first auteur film,
Okay,
where like there's so much this movie does right, but I think a lot of the hype that they get around it is that this is a lot of people's first really good movie, and I think it's
mm-hmm.
purely because of Letterbox.
It could be.
Yeah.
I I still need to see it. Um, I'll probably try to catch it once it gets on streaming somewhere. Not sure, but I could see that.
Like I would still put it in my top 10 movies, but I think the
Mhm.
hype around this is purely because of Letterbox.
It does feel a bit overhyped,
Yes,
even as far as like breakout, unexpected sort of movies go. It does seem a bit much.
I can't tell you enough, but I agree that it is worth the hype. But like there's just like a certain part of me that thinks that the hype is kind of feeding into itself a little bit because I in my worldview, right? And the infamous worldview of me, uh, I believe a film like this should not be popular because it is very out there. It's very fun, but very out there. It's the kind of film that the average Joe would not go see, and that's why I think it is entirely like due to this letterbox effect and like a lot of people like from the word of mouth of like people trying to be like these big cinema snobs, like in that South Park episode where everybody's the Yelp reviewer. Now that everybody's a letterbox reviewer, everybody thinks they know a thing or two about movies. So a lot of people are
Yeah.
like getting their first exposure to like what a really good movie looks like with this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try something real quick. I'm gonna see. Okay, another movie that I just saw that I'd probably put in my top 10. Right, Seven Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
Going to see what the letterbox for this looks like. Yeah. Okay. It's up there. It's like got a 4.5 because it's got IMDb rules. Uh, However, it is not ranked as high as Everything Everywhere All at Once in like their big score system.
Right.
Yeah. What you doing there, Mr. Chiral?
Well, I was trying to see if I could find this guy's letterbox thing, but I'm still not having any luck.
Wow.
I found the account that has his name is clearly not his,
Mm.
so it just must be under something different. I just don't remember and can't be bothered to look it up. Cosmonaut Variety Hour did a recent sort of like semi live stream piece that got re-uploaded to YouTube where he was talking about like, is he a contrarian? And he tried to look up comparing his reviews to public perception and compared to known contrarians. And I'm almost certain one of those was Armand White, who is just like the quintessential contrarian.
Hmm. See, I don't think I'm a contrarian as much as I know I have a taste for really niche shit. So, like,
Yep.
I know if I like it, a majority of people are not going to be into it.
There's a difference between a contrarian and a strong opinion.
Yeah.
Most people are just strongly opinionated. They know what they like.
Mm-hmm. I'm also going through their list of like top films, interesting choices. And I think this is really interesting to see like a new uh a film platform like this in a time that we live in, because you have like these very much boomer, like this is just the rules of how we rate film choices, like The Godfather on here.
Yep.
And then you've got The Dark Knight on the like a little bit further behind underneath it, which I believe it does deserve to be on there. I think this is like something you would traditionally not see like before this platform. Also, what's the point of Letterboxd compared to IMDb?
I believe Letterboxd is meant to be more interactive and less archival.
Okay, that makes sense. Number one on Letterboxd, by the way, is Parasite.
How are you looking at that? Is it just like lists or something?
Yeah, here. I'll just link it to you.
Yeah, because I went to film's highest rated. It's just a bunch of TV shows.
Really?
Yeah,
This is what I'm seeing here. Oh, this is someone's list. Fuck you, Dave. I thought you were official.
yeah.
I
Just
clicked.
going by all decades, all genres, all services. Sort by average rating, highest first. Pull up the top five here. I don't think I've heard of any of them. Number one is A Dog's Will. I've never heard of it. 21 Pilots live stream experience, 36 whole reviews. I wonder if there's like a limit for like lower end of reviews. Um, yeah, not really. Radiohead documentary,
Oh,
a live performance of something, and then Okupas with a whole 84 reviews. The first one I've heard of is just Cowboy Bebop, the TV show.
yeah, I see that. Okay, I think I found out who the main people are for Letterboxd are, based off the fact that Radiohead is on here.
What's that? Okay, so I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna say this is just like Tumblr for movies. That's my take on it.
I was going to say Reddit for movies, like for people who
Mm,
want a better way to express their opinion than Reddit.
maybe.
Uh, okay.
I feel like that's pretty. There's a strong crossover there. I'll put it that way.
Well, you see, my problem is I don't. I think Tumblr's dead. And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. So at this point, I don't think there will be anything similar to Tumblr, and we just kind of have to compare it to what we have now because everybody for Tumblr has infected all the other social media sites at this point, looking for ways to spread their disease.
Curious about the first like actual movie on here is that I've seen. There's a bunch of music stuff that's clearly just fucking everything up.
Yeah,
Here's The Godfather,
I've seen that.
Godfather Bird 2.
I've seen that.
It's telling how far I have to go here just to find movies. Godfather 3.
I have not
12
seen that.
Angry Men. I have technically seen that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like Harry Styles live has one fan.
So I'm not gonna lie. I think music movies Nine times out of 10 suck.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's like, I'd rather just go to the concert.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. If you prefer music movies over a concert, you just haven't been to a good concert. That's a fact.
Absolutely. Hey, Spider Verse. I know that one too.
Spider Verse is very good.
Okay, no. So the Dave's list is the official list.
Oh, thank
Dave just
God.
is the he is just like the person who keeps it archived, but that is the actual top 250 overall for movies.
That at least makes sense.
Yeah. So this is just them cutting out all of the chaff.
Interesting. Okay.
I guess to a point. There's still some chaff in here, let's be real.
Yeah. Um, it really is. I think this is a interesting litmus test almost to kind of figure out what our generation is watching and what we're considering, as our cultural
Mhm.
marking stones for film. Because
Yep.
I don't think you would get many boomers to watch Parasite.
No, you would not.
No.
They probably don't even know it exists. But I'll say though, then it's weird because then there's still stuff like the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is just like so different. It's weird. It's very weird to see any list go Lord of the Rings, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, The Empire Strikes Back.
So I don't know about you, but I've never gotten the hype behind Empire Strikes Back as a film. And I think this is because I grew up with Star Wars and I didn't watch them all
Yep.
individually in theaters. But to me, Empire Strikes Back only works as a part of Star Wars as a whole. As a standalone movie, I just see it as a part of a chapter, like a part of a larger series.
I don't know. I I haven't seen it in a long time. I'll start by saying that.
Mm,
So my perspective on it is definitely not the most recent, but it I'm not even gonna get into it. I haven't seen it recently to really say. It does seem overhyped to a degree, but I think that's the case with all Star Wars. The first one, and by extension, Empire Strikes Back, did something that was so original for average audiences that by virtue of being first and being early, it's going to get a ton of credit regardless.
you're right.
And Empire Strikes Back did do well to smooth out some of the rough edges that uh, the first movie had.
And then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, and then it was kind of all downhill from there.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I'm just like skimming through the top 100. I don't think I'd put any of these into like, oh, okay, no, there we go. Most of these I've not heard of, but the ones that I have heard of, I still wouldn't rate this highly. So I think that's interesting that they're up here.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I would definitely put Seven Samurai. Like, okay, the thing with me is that with Seven Samurai, that is a movie that just kind of blew my mind in how it's done and
Yep.
how it's paced. So if I
Yep.
seem like I'm playing favoritism with it, it's because I've literally just seen it and I'm still accepting it into my worldview. But I would put
Yeah,
that in
that's
top
fair.
10. Uh, Controversial opinion, right?
Hmm.
I like The Godfather. I think The Godfather is a very good movie.
Yep.
I think it's overhyped.
I still need to see it, so I can't say.
The music for it's fucking brilliant. I love the
Mm-hmm.
theme to The Godfather. I have a fucking vinyl of The Godfather's soundtrack. That's how much I like this movie soundtrack. But if you were to tell me like a lot, like to point out the things I liked about it outside the music, I would say it just does a lot of things well, but nothing spectacular from my end.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Hmm. So that girl I'm dating, she also has a very controversial opinion that I see on this list.
Oh yeah.
She says Spirited Away is the most overrated movie she's ever seen.
I wouldn't disagree. I am surprised it's the top Miyazaki or Ghibli piece.
Really?
I wouldn't put it as number one for all of Ghibli stuff, at least.
I mean, I get why it's so high up there. There's things in it I really like. I would probably put it as number one, but I would also let it fight a couple other entries and not make it definitively the number one.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
depends on
guess
my
maybe
mood.
that's part of it because it is like the only Miyazaki Ghibli thing up there. You have to go a long way to see anything else.
Yeah. Like Mononoke, I think is very good as well.
Mhm. It is a very interesting insight into how things get rated on these aggregation websites.
Yeah.
Just to see it kind of raw like this.
I think it just kind of lets you in on like how human taste works too.
Mm. Hey, Grand Budapest Hotel made the top 250. All right, it's
Hey,
redeemed.
it is redeemed. Toy Stories on this list. Okay. Toy Story 1, I don't think is that great.
Yes.
Toy Story
No.
2 is my shit.
Hmm.
I think Toy Story as a whole hits a better themes in Toy Story 2 than Toy Story 1.
I think I just found one of the reasons why I don't like this list so much. Stuff like Goodwill Hunting being at 183. There's a lot of slower character focused movies from like the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s that I am just not seeing on here that I do think deserve to be higher. Stuff like Goodwill Hunting in that category as a whole that feels like I think is being judged more harshly because it's not something from like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah, I feel like the time a lot of these movies came out is showing like the bias of how some of these people view film.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
I feel like you get a lot more leeway with older films.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like 12 Angry Men being what fucking seventh, ninth. It's a good movie. It's not the ninth best movie, but it gets a pass because it's from 1957.
Yeah. Did you know movies were outlawed back then, Mr. Chiral? It's just impressive this exists.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody knew what a movie was. People thought there were actually 12 angry men in that room, and they just wanted to know what those angry men were about.
Here's my controversial take. The animated movie Your Name does
Yep.
not deserve to be on this list
I
at
remember
all.
you saying that movie's overrated.
It's so over. It's not bad, but it's not that good. It's got the best part of it is the music. Who
Hmm.
gives a shit about the story?
So, Genesis Evangelion, the end of Evangelion's on
Yeah,
this list.
a whole shitload of them are.
Yeah. I've seen that movie.
Evangelion people are weird as hell.
Evangelion is overrated. I'm going to
I
say.
haven't seen it, so I can't definitively say it's overrated, but it sure as hell feels like it with the way how people talk about it.
Like, it's trying a lot to be more than it actually is.
Mhm.
Does not automatically mean it's done well. Well, I think it really speaks to a certain type of person very, very well, and I'm not that kind of person.
Maybe.
So I found out Stalker is on this list, and that's actually a film I plan on watching pretty soon. So I'm excited for that one.
Hmm.
Do you ever just plan out your movie watches way ahead of time?
No, I am not nearly coordinated enough to do that.
Oh shit, Whiplash is on here. Yeah, that deserves to be on this list.
I have the like for me, if I'm like gonna go see a movie, I'm usually like getting the tickets the hours before I'm about to see it, and it's just chance if there's even a seat left.
I wasn't really talking about like what's the word I'm
Oh, I
looking
know,
for?
but that's just
Yeah.
my perspective as a whole.
Yeah. For me,
I don't plan ahead.
if it's a movie I'm really excited to watch, I will put it on my list and like streaming services and whatnot,
Hmm.
and I'll have it there just like waiting on my to continue watch list until I have
Yep.
like the time to actually watch it. Seven Samurai is a movie I was waiting to watch since fucking December, and I only watched it last week.
Yeah. I'm still a bit of a boomer when it comes to streaming services, so
For shame, Kyril.
yeah. I just have a hard time justifying the cost, you know?
I mean, I would like to get the most out of my money with streaming services as well. I think really the only one I really like that I think is a worthwhile streaming service, HBO Max.
Yeah. I don't know. Ironically, I have a hard time thinking of it that way because I just get it with my cable, anyways.
You lucky bitch.
I don't know. I probably need to change it. When I signed up for it, it was I got it basically for free, and I'm probably getting charged for it now. Now that I think about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just how it goes.
Sometimes it just do be like that.
Cable companies suck.
Do we have anything else we want to cover today?
That's all I have. Just surprise at Maverick being worth a shit after being delayed for so long.
I forgot that we started on Maverick. Okay.
Yeah, it's apparently a good movie. I might try to go see it. It don't sound like the kind of movie that's probably better in theaters, just because of the audio side of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
One thing, if I had like an unlimited budget to make my own film cinematic universe,
Mm-hmm.
I'd honestly do like a musical cinematic universe just so we can explore film sound more. Because like I
Yep.
feel like film sound and music and film has been stagnated because of that bastard Hans Zimmer. That's just me. I'm probably speaking out of my ass in that situation, but that's what I'm saying. In the meantime, I'm the Mr. Ryan, and I am a schmo,
I'm Cairo. I'm also a schmo.
and this has been the Two Schmo Show, baby.